All right, Steve Wood, recovered alcoholic. Welcome to Great Reality Book Study. Um, Last week, it was really cool last week. Quite a bit of people afterwards reached out. Other than the questions that were answered, we talked about the end. A lot of people reached out with more questions, as even as just a couple of days ago, which is great. And I mean, I love looking at the fifth step promises like we did, and the questions on 75, are the stones properly in place and what have you. But it's really about, you know, the big question is, are you now ready, willing to let God remove all the things which admit are objectionable? And just like tonight, well, it's almost like as soon as you hit with from 4 to 5, willingness gets deeper and deeper and deeper. But once you get to 6, willingness is the absolute key. And it flows into 8, and we'll talk about that more. But you know, the 7-step prayer we talked about completes the 3rd-step prayer. That's why there's the amen at the end. And I always like to say it's just one long prayer all the way from 3 to 7. And so if I'm looking at it this way, if I uncover the truth in step 4, and that truth is simply that my thinking and belief system isn't driven by misdirected instincts, then I become aware. I discover in step 5, with the help of another person in God, that my misdirected instincts control my thinking and my beliefs and block me from God within. And once I become aware of that, remember it says in the promises of step 5, we may have certain spiritual beliefs and now begin to have spiritual experience. And then the after the promises says we thank God from bottom of our hearts, so we now know him better. That means the spiritual malady is overcome. It's getting there. And so if I let go and just discard of my thinking in 6 and 7 by letting God take the stuff away, that's the spiritual cleansing that starts to happen. If that happens, why wouldn't I want to go out and repair the destruction I have caused? It would really get me looking at that. So, so many say, "Oh, I'm never going to make an amends," but then they go through 5, 6, and 7. Especially, well, I'll just say once they get through 6 and 7, they instantly become willing if it's done thoroughly and correctly. But to make amends, 6 and 7 is just about letting God remove our defects. It prepares me to go to the outside world and repair the damages I have done and caused others. And step 9 is it's like our natural reaction to discovering God. Is I hurt people because I was living on self-will. I need to go out and fix that by making amends. It's not about proving the person wrong anymore or anything like that. And so that 6 and 7 propel me to go out and make amends. And if 6 and 7 is not done, well, I will have the same reasons and excuses that I've always had why I can't go make amends or why you're wrong and everything else. So let's go to page 76. So first thing I want to point out on this page is the end of the 7-step prayer, because there's a time frame in there. It's kind of a time frame. There's right after the 7-step prayer. What does it say? We've completed step 7. And then it says, now we need more action. So it's always interesting to me that right after the deep cleansing of 6 and 7, he's calling for more action. That says a lot about the formula, that we're doing. We cannot relax. We need to keep an action. It's always this program is all about repetition. It's all about keeping going. It's not about doing 1 step a month or taking our time or waiting until I feel like I'm ready to do this. As far as in between the steps, because now we need more action, which we find that faith without works is dead. We've heard that earlier, and that's that's an old biblical script. Faith without works is dead. Faith with I like to call faith without action is dead. You got to have faith. You have faith. You got to have action. It says on page, I forget what page it's on, but it says, constructive action is faith. Is to have faith, and that's pretty deep. I think it's on 94. It says that, but it says let's look at 8 and 9. So it's interesting. He's not saying let's look at 8. He's saying let's look at 8 and 9. We have a list of all the persons we've harmed and are willing, which means ready. That should be our theme tonight, is willingness, I think, to make amends. We made it when we took inventory. So we made the list and took inventory, and it's like he's alluding that perhaps we also did a harm inventory. I mean, some people take the harms off their resentment list. I do a harm inventory. It makes it a little easier for me in the sex conduct, but it's whatever way gets you to where you need to be. It says we subjected ourselves to a drastic self-appraisal. And drastic is a pretty big word because it means radical. So radical self-appraisal, right? And if something's radical, it's all about change. So now we go out to our fellows and repair the damages done in the past. So there's that word I mentioned a little bit ago, repair. It means to fix something. If you have a leaky roof, you go up and you repair it, you fix it, you mend it, right? You make it right in a sense, so it works again. Or your pipe, like last year, all my pipes went out. Well, not all of them, but my pipes are underneath my house, so the slab broke, and we had to reroute everything to the walls. It was a repair, but we made right to get the water running again. A little bit different than what we're looking here, but it was mended. It was fixed. So we subject ourselves to drastic self-appraisal. Now we go out to our fellows and repair the damage done in the past. So the instincts are always affected in resentment and harms as well. The instinct that's always affected in that is personal relations. Step 9, going out and making amends, is about repairing those personal relations. But no, when I say that, some people say, well, you're repairing them. No, I'm repairing the personal relations from my standpoint. It's the amends is for me. It's not for the other person. But it says we attempt to sweep away the debris, and debris just means wreckage, right? So we attempt to sweep away the wreckage, which is accumulated out of our efforts to live on self-will, and that's the misdirected instincts, the pride and self-esteem and all that, and run the show ourselves. So self-will is about running the show myself. It's going to make me run the show myself. It's going to cause, remember when we did the 4th step on resentments, let's just say. And when I look at it, let's say, whoever I resent, let's say my father, and I put personal relations and I check all the boxes, right? But remember on 67, it asks us to disregard what the other person then did, putting out of the wrongs they had done entirely. So we're staring only at the 3rd column where we check those instincts. And the end result, we find out that we're selfish, self-seeking, dishonest, and afraid. That's what misdirected instincts make me run the show myself, right? We're all alone. If we haven't the will to do this, we ask. So when it says ask in this book, that means pray. So this is the 8-step willingness prayer. If we have the will to do this, we ask, we pray until it comes. And it's kind of your own wording. God, give me the willingness to make these amends, right? It's very similar to the 6-step prayer. If we still cling to something, will not let go, we ask God, help us be willing. Why should I be willing to do this? Simple. If I'm not willing to do this, I'm not going to do it. What does willing mean? It means ready. So willingness is the key here. It's willingness with all the steps, but it gets deeper with each step, right? And the more it goes deeper, the more hope we get. But now we're beyond hope. We're in the awakening process. But if you're not willing to make amends, you're still holding resentment. Remember, it's going to say, I don't think we'll get there tonight, but it says we go to the person in a forgiving spirit. So if I go do some like a forgiveness thing, and I go to Rob to make an amends later, I'm going to go to him forgiving spirit. So could in essence, six, if I'm letting go of my resentments in six, asking God to let him go, God give me the power. It's in essence, it's the element of forgiveness. He just doesn't use the word. So if I don't, that means I haven't let it go. So we must be 100% confident. So when I approach a person that I owe amends to, I'm no longer carrying a resentment. Otherwise, it's going to be it's not going to be an amends. It's going to be a mess. If I'm still holding resentments, it means I never truly let go in six, and I don't have the willingness to do it. So, we must firmly let go in six and seven. And if you're not, you need to talk to your sponsor about it and pray more on it and really look into it. Look deeper in the six. It's okay if we no longer want to be part of that person's life. We're not doing this for reconciliation. We're doing this to make amends. You might say, I don't want to say or think about that person at all again. The important thing is you're ready to make amends. And you know when you're ready. I mean, anyone in here that started the steps within the first three and was always tripping up. You were never ready to do four. You're never truly ready to do it. And you don't even know what four is. And you get there, you're like, oh, when you're ready, and the willingness grows. We get, but again, so we get this willingness to move past the resentments in six and seven. So 6 and 7 is the pinnacle step. It's very important. Very important. Says, remember, it was agreed at the beginning that we go to any lengths for victory over alcohol. I remember an old timer told me once, there's no victory over alcohol ever. Because I said there was victory over alcohol in the meeting. And he said, I'll be recovered when I'm dead and all this other stuff, he said. But it's kind of weird because on 44, we're suffering from this. It's only a spiritual experience will conquer. So that tells me there is victory over alcohol. So he's going back to the mindset, that made us walk in AA in the first place for victory over alcohol. We may not use those words, but that's why we walked in there. And when we get to step one, it's fully explained to us that we have this disease, this allergy obsession, victory over alcohol. So he's reminding us why we started this. He's taking a simple approach. We're suffering from the illness. Only spiritual experience will conquer. Right? We agreed at the beginning that and the words that people forget here is any lengths for victory over alcohol. Any lengths. Amends, people say it's a part of the Oxford Group principles, but it even goes back to early Christianity, but it goes back to, I remember like the sacraments in Catholicism talks about amends. You have sacrament of marriage and confirmation and communion and all that, but there's amends in there too. But the amends are talking about like if you broke something of someone's, you replace it. So amends wasn't something new. It was very, very, believe it or not, like with the metaphysics movements of the 30s, amends was a very popular word. You need to fix it, they would say. But for the Oxford Group, it was, it was, it's spearheaded the movement because Frank Bookman, who was the founder, and I told a story earlier on in the book study, he was one of the leaders of like a hospice. And I think they're connected to the YMCA, I believe. Could be wrong. But basically he founded it, but he got fired from his own board, and he was very mad. And he went to the Keswick Convention in England to get past it. And he went to hear F.B. Mayer speak, who was like the greatest speaker of that time. and FB Mayor didn't show up, and this woman showed up, and Rob probably would know the woman's name. I forget the woman's name that actually spoke that day. And she spoke about making amends for resentment. And he sat there in that church, and this is what he said. This is from a book. I thought of the 6 men from the board who had wronged me. I then saw that moment I was the 6th wrong man, 7th wrong man. I began to see myself as God saw me, which was very different picture than the one I had in myself. I can only tell you, I sat there and realized how my wrongs, my pride, my selfishness, and my ill will had eclipsed me from God. I saw my resentments against those people standing out like tombstones in my heart. I asked God to change me, and he told me to put things right with them. I wrote 6 letters of restitution, 6 letters of amends to the board members. It produced in me a vibrant feeling as though a strong current life had suddenly been poured into me, and afterwards a dazed sense of a great spiritual shakeup. Not soon after, so like right around that, after he started taking people through surrender, confession, sin, and eventually leading into the absolutes of the Oxford group. You know, the absolute honesty, absolute purity, absolute unselfish, and absolute love. It spearheaded that Oxford group, and their procedure was restitution to all whom we wronged directly and indirectly, which I think is very interesting the way they put that. I explained that harms can be directly and indirectly, which means directly would be, Rob, you're a jerk. You know, that would be a direct harm. An indirect harm would be, I'm you know, driving the wrong way down the road, and he's crossing in front of my car. Someone's just caught in the crossfire of me, you know, indirect. Didn't plan, or I rob him, you know, it could be that. So they look at it that way. But restitution is a big word because it's the action of making right the wrong by returning something to the former owner, you know, place that's lost and stolen, but restoring to its original state. So in spiritual terms, it would mean to right, you know, the damage is done. It means the same thing as amends if you look at it. But the one thing that Bill liked the word amends better, and because restitution, well, they both mean to make it right. Restitution, besides making right with the other person, it aimed at reconciliation. And reconciliation can happen by making amends. That just means, you know, I haven't spoken to Rob in 20 years, and I go make amends to him, and I'm just there to clean my side of the street, and we become friends again because of it. We forget, you know, some type of restitution happens, you know, and so it means that reconciliation, and so that means reconciliation would mean the past relationship has been restored as well as making right. Bill thought that that was too much pressure for the alcoholic, and I can't remember who said it. I think it was Father I can't remember his name, the guy that does the Blackboard on YouTube. Father Martin said that early AA members thought that was reconciliation should be left up to God. You know, and I was glad they kept it making it right, because there was people that I didn't want to have reconciliation with. I just wanted to make amends, quit my side of the street. A lot of them did happen that way. So I'm going to put up the 8th step up here on the wall, or the whatever you call it. So step 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. Again, amends means to make right the wrong. And when people look at this, a lot of times they only see the list part, but they don't see became willing to make amends to them all. Right? And the willing to make amends to them all, everyone, remember, we need to pray for that. And I just kind of hammered that home a few minutes ago. I'm going to close it up again. I think we all know that step, but let's go to page 83. We're going to jump to the list where it says there may be some wrongs we can never fully right. And it says we don't worry about them if we can honestly say to ourselves we would write them if we could. Now, some people will say you get the guys at the book discussions at the meetings, and once in a while I always joke and I say this, it gets the most quiet at those book discussions when you cover sex conduct and you cover amends. Some people just don't want to say anything or say where they're at or admit that they're, and at least there I am in. And they'll say things like, you see, the book says there may be some men's we can never write. That's not what it says. Fully right. It does not say there's nothing in there that says that there's some wrongs we can never right. It's not saying that at all. It says fully right, completely right. Let's hypothetically say I hustled June out of $2 million. But I don't have $2 million. I won't be able. I'll make it right the best I can. So there's some amends I can never fully right. A lot people fear face-to-face amends, so they take an easy way out, like living amends. I'm not a fan of this. Living amends is just a way out of making direct amends. I don't believe there's any such thing as living amends. I don't know. You know, I've had people say, I don't know how to make amends to my dad, so I'm gonna make a living amends. So I'm gonna make him breakfast every Friday and go hang out with him. That's just something you should be doing anyways. You know, something I should be doing anyways, practicing the principles in all our affairs. You know, I mean, let's just say, I don't know if Rob has a motorcycle or not, but I'm gonna pick on Rob again. Let's say I wrecked Rob's $25,000 motorcycle, you know, and so I go up to him and say, sorry, I wrecked your motorcycle. I'm gonna make a living amends. I'm no longer gonna ride a motorcycle. That doesn't replace the bike I just wrecked. I heard some extreme cases. Charlie P, he was a good friend of mine. He passed away a couple of years ago, and loved the guy. And he was very straightforward. And he told a story of a woman that stole, like, I think it was like $7,000 or $8,000 from working when she was working in a bank. And she says she went back to working in banks so she can make a living amends. So she never, so she never, and the living amends that she no longer steals from the bank. That's not making it right. That's not an amends. It sounds good. It sounds neat, but it's not that what's in this book, and it goes on to say here, some people cannot be seen, so he send them an honest letter. I love the way he says honest letter, right? This person is most likely deceased. I like to keep it at that. It's just my own opinion. It's not the person I can't find across the country and all that stuff. Um, let me rephrase that. It might be the person we can't find. We just don't know their name. So we can send them, I can't find them, but I don't use that as an excuse. It has to be extreme case. And it says, and there may be valid reasons for postponement. And so the thing is valid, means, you know, a good reason for postponement, right? It's got to be valid. It's got to be truthful. You know, um, in some cases, we call this unwilling. Not ready, deferred. I'm not ready to make this amends, and I'm all for that with sponsees, because if they say that I'm not willing, I say, okay, let's look at the willing ones and let's concentrate on those. And something happens when they start making the willing ones. The unwilling float over, right? And look what it says is we don't delay it if it can be avoided. So he's giving some sound advice. We should be sensible. You know what that means? Tactful. Tactful is a powerful word. I mean, that means very delicate, tactful with the person, calm, considerate and humble. without being servile or scraping. We know how to be servile and scraping. This is one of my favorite lines in the whole Men's. As God's people, we stand on our feet. We don't crawl before anyone. We've been crawling from people our whole life, all the time. I mean, my thing wasn't necessarily crawling a lot. It was always looking at the ground. When I asked my first sponsor if he could sponsor me, I'm like, "Can you sponsor me?" And he put his thumb. I didn't even know this guy yet. Put his thumb on my chin. And he lifts me up and he goes, ask me one more time." And he goes, "We hold our heads up here, And he looks at me. He goes, "We don't crawl. We stand on our feet." And standing on our feet is, it's not making a living amends. That would be crawling still. So over the years, I've always, you know, I used to do my amend sheets just on binder paper for the guys and women I take through the steps, but I've adapted to make it easier as I could. So I broke it down to 4 categories, and it's similar to Joe and Charlie. Just I go by more big book words, like they'll say now. I use the word willing, and that means, so that's what it looks like. So, willing again means ready, eager, prepared to do something now. Same thing as Joe and Charlie. So a recurring problem I've come across is so let me say this first is you put your name, I mean, not your name, the person's name, and then you ask the person how they can make it right. So you write what they said. And I used to just say, write what they say and then figure it out. But I realize that the action sometimes is not easy to figure out. They might say, keep doing what you're doing. And sometimes that's 5 more amends, or whatever you think it's supposed to be. Sometimes say, call me. And you say, okay, I'm going to call the guy 5 times and I want to call him more, but 5 times is enough to complete the amends, whatever it is. They might say, just, I want you back in my life, as far as a parent goes or something, whatever it is. And then you write down the date completed. It's not completed when I ask them how I can make it right. It's completed when I complete the amends. And people think by asking the person I can make it right, they can cross person's name off the list. Like, they believe that, they made it right. It hasn't been made right. All we've done is gathered information how to make it right. So it's done when it's completed. Well, I mean, I guess an example would be I make amends to one of my best friends, and when I ask him how I can make it right, he just, says, you know, um, let's go have breakfast and start hanging out again every Sunday or something. I had a friend said that to me. I hadn't seen him in 4 years. We used to go every week. And I made, I said, okay, 5 times in my head, I'm saying that would be enough to complete the amends. Well, 23 years later, we still meet. Well, it's not quite every Sunday, but at least 3 times a month, you know. Um, so it's so interesting how it happens. The one that people say the most is, like I said, keep doing what you're doing and all that. You hear that a lot. Some people tell you exactly how to make it right, and some are vague. That's the thing. So this is the one that I have the most fun with, is the unwilling. And it's not to rub anyone's nose in it when they're unwilling, but it means you're not ready, you're not eager, you're not inclined to, not prepared. You're not ready to do it. You're not prepared. And it might also be deferred. It might be circumstances cause me to defer it for now. I don't want to see this person right now. I might, it's just I'm not ready for it. And we pray for the willingness to do it. So they're not unwilling. And what I love about this is, instead of it being a conversation, I used to ask them, explain to me why you're not willing. And problem is, it would go on for 15 minutes. I just give them one little sentence to write in here. So they say, Uncle Joe, say, I'm not willing to make amends to him because he's always mean to me. Okay. But what happens, they start reading these reasons back and they start sounding kind of silly, and then they just kind of go, oh, I get it, but what happens is, like I said before, is the willing, you start making the willing amends, and these unwilling float over to the willing. They just float over there. And that's what happens. Right? So the next one is creditors. So let's go to page 78. And they tell us one of the biggest secrets in recovery that we never knew when we came here. And that big secret and surprise is that most alcoholics owe money. Big surprise, right? And we do not dodge our creditors. And the question is what is a creditor? Is any person or institution to which I had some type of commitment, a promise of debt to be paid back. Could be a friend, could be a bank, could be a sister or brother, spouse, child, child support, whatever, parent, boss, a store, even the drug dealer. Oh, not say not the drug dealer, like that feels, all the slippery places you just can't go back. How about people go, you can't make amends, but like they told me, I mean, I had drug dealers I owed money to, I had liquor bars, tabs. Even though I went to make amends to one bar, and it was 2 years. It wasn't 2 years later. It was about 8 months since I was sober, and the guy still goes, "You can't come in here anymore." You guys still remembered. The other one I had was the liquor store. I went to the liquor store to pay my tab, and the dude put my bottle up on the table. He hadn't seen me in like 9 months. Well, actually, it wasn't 9 months. It was like 6 months. We hadn't seen me in 6 months, but that dude he was waiting for me. Boom, there's the bottle of 100 proof peppermint schnapps up on the table. You know. That's scary. But I went and I told him I wasn't scared of doing it. I said, I'm paying my tab with you. And he's like, oh, don't worry about it. I said, here, just take it. You know, any lengths, any lengths. I was told about my grand sponsor, something that was probably the most important thing he ever told me. There's no difference between stealing money off your mom's dresser and not paying her back a promised loan. It's all stealing. And I was like, I got it when he said that, but it was like magic words for me over the years where people that try to justify that they never stole from someone, but they have loans they never paid back. If you made the agreement to pay it back and you break the agreement, it's stealing. It's dishonesty. Is it better, maybe a nicer word to say? Dishonesty. So on this one, I'm writing the name of the person, oops, this is the wrong one. Name the person or institutions you owe payback to. Could be whatever. And I usually have them put the people on there first and describe, the arrangement that they can do right now. And then when completed, and then I have them over months go by, start looking at their credit and stuff like that. And I've seen some amazing things happen. Let's see what it says in here. They tell us. It says, so he says, we don't dodge our creditors. Telling them what we are trying to do. We make no bones about our drinking. Guess why? They usually know it anyhow, whether we think so or not. Nor are we afraid of disclosing our alcoholism on the theory it may cause financial harm. Approaching this way, the most ruthless creditor will sometimes surprise us. I owe amends to a friend that had a business where he would give money and food to the homeless and stuff. And I knew him since I was a kid. I knew him from Catholic school as a kid. Great guy. And I swear to God, I thought that guy did not know I drank. And then I went to make amends to him, and he goes, I'm glad you're going to AA. I was just like, got it. So arrange the best deal we can. Well, let people know we're sorry. So there is a little apology in there. Our drinking is made us slow to pay. We must lose our fear of creditors, no matter how far we have to go. We're liable to drink if we're afraid of them. Whenever he uses the end result is we might drink if we're afraid of this, like the sex conduct one and all that. I really like to listen. I really have to listen. Let me rephrase that. I have to. I've known several people over the years that I've been clean and sober who were doing the steps yet never made right with those they owed money. I mean, some people just threw money on the counter and never even looked at the person, whatever. But they walked into recovery, but a lot of people I know walked in recovery with credit debt, and they wait 7 years until it disappears. It's not making it right, really. It's dodging it, and I have known people who have that after doing their fifth step decided to declare bankruptcy rather, I had a guy that barely had any money he owed. It wasn't that much compared to, he filed for bankruptcy, and there's other ones that owe tons of money to their parents. And just because the relationship all of a sudden he was speaking, oh, so I'm speaking to him again. I would say, so did you pay him back the money? Oh, we're cool. Just because you're speaking to them doesn't mean you don't owe the money, though. They always get brought up. I know the people that never paid child support. That's not making it right. That's a big one right there. My best friend in recovery, one of my mentors, he had 6 months in recovery, and his friend walks up to him in the fellowship hall, and he goes, "They got me." And he goes, "Who got me?" "The state franchise tax board got me." And he goes, "For my 3 kids." And my friends goes, "Really?" And he goes, like, "Oh, they're gonna get you. They haven't got me yet." The next day they got him. He's got 30 years, and 7 years ago he caught up. He was just patient with it and kept doing what he could do. And he says it felt great. And he's close to his kids as ever. Amazing guy. Great role model. But I've known people that, again, stole from stores and, fear of going back, that's not making it right. We gotta do it. And if you notice, I said I've known people. That's past tense. That's what my grand sponsors used to always do. You always say, I knew a guy. And you always say they're not around anymore. I know a few of them that are dead. I mean, I just buried a guy recently and similar circumstances, but I've never known people achieve long-term sobriety without making financial amends and it's a program rigorous honesty, demands rigorous honesty. If I can't do that, perhaps this isn't for you. That's the way I always look at it. Um, that's the one thing all those people had in common is they lacked the capacity to be honest in a program that demands rigorous honesty, any lengths for victory of alcohol. The last one is my favorite on here because I had a personal experience. I remember, I don't remember what step I was on. Maybe I did the third step. I was just getting ready to write step 4, and no, I was writing step 4 with my sponsor. He's just sitting in the other room, I don't know, playing cards or something while I was writing some amends, some resentments. And I stopped and I go, I would do anything to make amends. I mean to say sorry to my grandmother and make it right with her. And he looked at me, he goes, "Perhaps you can." And he goes, "Finish that up." And because I was like a lot of people, see, I wish I could, make amends to my mom. She passed away, or maybe there's a person in your life that is no longer there. That person. It's hard. And when we're alcoholics, you got to remember one thing that happens to us is we tend to lose people. And what I mean by lose people, if I get a resentment against um one of the ones I owed amends to with my uncle, and I just kept putting it off and putting it off, and and I had many opportunities to while I wasn't sober yet. And then he died, and I felt super guilty. And then when I got here, thank God I could make amends. But there's nothing like telling a person they can. There's nothing. And the one that with me was my grandmother, and it's a very powerful story. Um, she basically, I'll tell the whole story. I might as well. The all these books I have, she always would tell me to read them for my own betterment. They're all anything from variety of this experience to Buddha books and Bibles and everything. And the she practically raised me. I would stay at her house, but she knew I was on dope. I would ask for $20. So I could go to the laundromat. This is for your dope. She would hand it to me. She just handed it over. But she was an amazing person. She was taught Tai Chi. She taught meditation. Uh, helped way before her time. She helped suicide prevention for people she counseled suicide prevention people through spiritual methods. And so she was really in touch with her spiritual side. And she got that by having a dark life at one point. And what happened with us was, um, the last conversation I had with my grandmother was she asked questions like, "What are you gonna do? Where are you going? What are you gonna do when you get there? Where are you?" And then so I told her I'm going to rehab. I'm like, "What are you gonna do differently this time?" And I said, "Oh, I said all the stuff you see here at meetings, fake it till you make it. I'm gonna stick with the winners and blah blah blah." And she's all, "Shut up." She knows, you know everything about she goes, "I know she goes, I know nothing about psychology, but I know everything about God." She's like, "You know nothing about," she's like, "All you know is psychology." And she in the chest, she's like, "You know nothing about God." And I sat there and I was like, and I got mad at her and left. And then the next day, where I was supposed to take her shopping, she walked to the store on her own in the rain and had a stroke. So it really stuck with me. And then she was in rehab, hoping to get back, not rehab, but like rehab for, a stroke. And she had a second one where she couldn't remember her name and her head would be lowered down all the time. And she couldn't remember anything, how to smoke, who her son was. But the most powerful thing happened was my sister went to see her and her head is down and she goes, "Hey, Steve's doing really good. I think he's going to make it this time." And my grandma all of a sudden sat up and went, "Thank God my prayers have been answered." And she died that night. And the nurses were like when she saw her sit up there, like, what happened? Like she came out of it for a minute. And then my brother said she had a smile on her face. And when I was devastated in rehab, but she died because I wanted to see her again. But then when I got the opportunity to make amends, I went to our old fishing hole one afternoon and I got there and it was our secret fishing hole that no one knew about. There's someone fishing there. So I waited all day, like 6 hours until they were done. And I walked there and this place you had to fish in the morning, otherwise it got windy. So it was like really windy, and I had a State of the Union address type thing. I had a written amends, and they all blew away in the wind. And I just closed my eyes and I just said, I breathed and I said, "Grandma, if there's anything I can do to make it right for all the stuff that I've caused you over the years and hurt, let me know." And I sat there and I was told by people the answers will come, and it did. It was like the words just popped in my head, "Stay right with God." And I felt this like strong wind, and then it all went away. And I opened my eyes, and the lake, which was so choppy, was like crystal clear. And it was like one of the most profound amends ever made. And it's why it's so important. And the thing about it is, you just write down the person can't be seen, what the response is, the same idea. Describe how you want to complete the amends. If you want it bad enough, you get the answers, you know, and it's very powerful. Let's look at step 9. Made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. So direct amends means face to face. Face to face is in person. That's what it means. And amends, of course, means you're right or wrong. At meetings, and how many times do you hear a person say, "Whenever possible, we make amends whenever possible." Go to your next meeting and sit around and listen to how many people say whenever possible when they read how it works. I'm not kidding. You're going to come back and go, "You were right." Whenever is just a time that something can be completed. But wherever is what? A time and a place. Wherever, a time and a place. It's a huge difference. The old saying, there's a time and a place for everything. There's a time and place to make amends. So wherever, the way I look at that is, I had a sponsee one day who was in Starbucks recently, and he saw across the place an old friend he needed to make amends to. The guy came up to him, started talking to him. I go, "Oh, how'd the amends go?" He goes, I couldn't make it." I said, "Dude, what happened to, the time and the place for everything?" Boom. You see the person, you make an amends wherever possible. And, but the cold reality, the sad reality is a lot of people do not make their amends, and they're going to dodge it. And I always say the top this is my experience, sponsoring a fair amount of people, is number one reason for relapse I've seen is not making amends. The second one would probably be not doing the 10 step. 3, right below that's not sponsoring. They're all kind of close. And then leaving stuff off my 5th step. The reason I don't have 4 on there, because if we skip 4, we're still on 3. But, and what's the main reason people skip 4? Because they're afraid of making amends. What's the, people don't want to do it. They're afraid. So they skip it. They don't have the willingness to go to do it. And people come back from recovery every day because, they never made amends. They say, I didn't go to, they don't say that though. I don't think I don't even think I've ever heard a person say at a meeting, yeah, I relapsed because I didn't make enough amends or didn't do amends. They say, I relapsed because I didn't go to enough meetings. So I need to go to more meetings, even though they're going to 3 a day. And I know, like I said earlier, I've never known anyone that skipped an amends that made it. But this book talks about one thing is sound reasoning, how it fails us to first drink, right? And sound reasoning is logical reasoning, something that's logical and rational, something that makes sense. Can sound reasoning interfere in my development of my relationship with God? Doing the steps. An example might be, oh, I can't tell my secrets to a stranger. They might tell someone. They got, can sound reasoning get in the way of making amends? Oh, I can't go make amends to my ex. She might slam the door in my face, or they don't like me over there, and I can't make amends to the cops. They might get suspicious. I can't go back to the stores I stole from because I'll call the all that stuff. And Phil says common sense becomes uncommon sense. And is common sense, is it common sense to go to an enemies and make amends? Is it common sense to go to someone we hurt and face them and honestly admit our mistake? Or go, like I said, go pay back the drug dealer. Let's see what the 12 and 12 says on page 23. And I love this. And I'm just going to read it straight through because it covers the point I'm trying to make. It says, who wishes to be rigorously honest and tolerant? Who wants to confess his faults to another and make restitution for harm done? Who cares anything about higher power, let alone meditation and prayer? Who wants to sacrifice time and energy carrying A's message to the next sufferer? No, the average alcoholic, self-centered to the extreme, doesn't care for this prospect unless he has to do these things in order to stay alive himself. Under the lash of alcoholism, we were driven to AA, and there we discovered the fatal nature of our situation. And then and only then do we become as open-minded to the conviction as the willing to listen as a dying can be. We stand ready to do anything to lift this merciless obsession from us. And I saw Howard here a second ago. He has a group called Window of Opportunity. There's only that small window of opportunity for what it says right there. When they get there, they're open-minded as a dying man can be. That's why we get them to step 9 as quickly as possible so they can still have that. But we look for ways out of amends by justifying personal reasons why we should not make the amends. We balk at a step based on what we think is sound reasoning, forgetting that we made a 3rd step decision to no longer make decisions based on self. And as results 427, we have connected to God. Now we must trust God. If we want to grow with God, we must make amends. And, I'll be working with a guy and we're on step 2. And the guy will stop in the middle of, page 55 on step 2 or something. He'll go, hey, by the way, when I'm making my amends, and I say, wait a minute, what step are we on? 2. Let's focus on 2. He's so overly focused and preoccupied with a step they're not even on before they even get there. And which means they already have outcomes in their heads. And they say, the one question that I don't like in recovery is, what if? What if I go make amends and they say, what's what if? It's speculation of a future event. That's not a spiritual word at all. Speculation is reasoning based on insufficient evidence. So in other words, it's a theory. A theory is an accepted belief that you, you know, that you do not know because you never experienced it. Anything you know in life is from experience. Anything else is theory. So we justify not making amends based on theory, and what if is a guess what might happen. I would say there's no what ifs in recovery, and I say there is absolutes. And that we've heard of the theology of absolutes, but an absolute is something is without doubt. It's fact. It never changes. So I say I don't deal with what ifs, I deal with absolutes. So an absolute might be you have hurt people and you resent people. There's another absolute. You have a list of names with names on it. Another absolute. When someone makes amends, we become free. Another absolute might be making amends is key to permanent recovery. Another one is if we don't make them, there's a very good chance we're not going to make it. And another one is it's part of the formula. Step 9 is where excuses must end, theories must end, beliefs must end. We can't be, if I still have any of the old thinking that's there, it's going to get in the way of the new thinking that needs to come alive. Page 76. Probably there are still some misgivings. Misgivings means fear. What might happen. You believe it's not a good idea. You need to trust the process. There are still some misgivings as we look over the list of business acquaintances and friends we have heard. We feel diffident, it means hesitant about going to some of them on a spiritual basis. Let's be reassured. To some people, we need not and probably should not emphasize the spiritual feature on the first approach. We might prejudice them. It means don't go to a person and say, I'm on a mission from God, or I found God here in AA and I'm here to make amends to you. And we don't need to say any of that stuff. I don't think anyone want to know that. We'll get more on that in the future, but at the moment, this is like the pinnacle for this part right here we're covering tonight. At this moment, we're trying to put our lives in order, but this is not an end in itself. So it's the most important statements in the book. One of the most. Our real purpose is to fit ourselves to maximum service to God and the people about us. So that's our purpose, is to aim towards a goal. Something we strive for. Fit. Think of like physical fitness, proper condition. But we're talking about not just physical, we're talking about mentally, emotionally, spiritually, like, spiritually fit. We're spiritually fitting ourselves. The maximum is what? The greatest amount possible. I fill this cup to the maximum amount, it's filled to the top. It's a big word. In service is to provide, duties and help to someone. It's a gift. It's a gift. You remember page 63, we're told that we have a new employer, and being all powerful, we can provide what we need if we stay close and performance work well. Can I keep close to God if I'm not making amends? Can I do God's work of maximum service to others, to God's bidding, if I'm not making amends? No, because it's a big part of my world is closed off. I'm locking doors I can't open. By making amends, I'm sustaining my commitment I took on the 3rd step prayer. And that prayer was and is my oath to be maximum service to God and you people, everybody else. I mean, think about it. God, I offer myself to thee to build with me, to do with me as I will. Relieve me the bondage of self. Why? Take away my books, which why? That victory over them may bear witness to those that help with thy power, thy love, and thy way of life. I cannot do that if I'm sitting on a bunch of amends. Either I mean what I say in that prayer or I don't. And if we didn't, we are not truly ready for this way of life. It's just a fact. If we are ready for, then what matters the most is continue growing and living. And it just becomes organic. If you want a new life, amends is the price we pay. And I always say this, you either get paid by making amends, or you pay the price by not making amends. I paid the price too many times. In the 7th step prayer, I talk about doing God's bidding, which is God's work. Again, can I do God's work if there's still unfinished business in my past that needs to be repaired? And I said, a few minutes ago that a purpose was an aim towards, something. It's an aim or goal, something I'm striving for. And so you got to remember, where there's a goal, there's an ideal mindset. So the ideal is the principle and the value that's where within me. And when I pursue it, I'm going to grow and grow and grow. It's what we truly want in life, where our dreams come true. So our goals provide the obtainable, measuring steps to achieve an ideal. So if your goal is to be fit, is to fit ourselves in maximum service to God and the people about us, if that's your goal, what's your ideal? Freedom. Freedom would be the ideal, the spiritual ideal. So making amends leads to freedom. And that's the capacity to, break the restraints I've had, and life becomes an open road. One type of freedom we receive by making amends is spiritual freedom. The spiritual malady is the inability to connect to the spirit within me. When I do 4 through 7, we let go of a lot of stuff that stands between us and God. The resentments, the anger, the hate, the jealousy, some selfishness and fears. But then things aren't as easy to get rid of. Depression, self-pity, and restless, irritable, and discontent, some fears, even the obsession. And the reason I still have those is because what? Guilt. Guilt puts in it. That's the shame, personal shame I have for committing a past right. It's eating stuff, something eating me up inside. And people will say it's a useless emotion because you can only have guilt what's already taken place. And I disagree with that. I disagree with it, because I can fix it. That's what we get. A lot of people don't get. We have the opportunity to fix it. I can go out into the physical world and make amends. Amends not only clears away my guilt, it clears away my remorse, my shame, my misery, my self-pity, my rest, and with it goes the obsession, maybe even sooner the obsession than that. But the book says when the spiritual mind is overcome, which not mentally and physically, that means the obsession is gone. I would say that the amends plays a pretty big part in that. And I love a quote by the Oxford Group co-founder Samuel Shoemaker, Reverend Samuel Shoemaker. He said, "Our relationship with God cannot be right unless our relations with others are right as well. For it is pointless to go to keep in touch with God as long as there are human relations which must be right at the same time." Pretty straightforward. But another freedom we get from making amends is freedom in the physical world, not just the spiritual world, not the stuff inside of me, the physical world. And some people only focus on this part. It's a lot going on here. If we make no effort towards making amends, like I said earlier, there's a lot of people, places, and things I had to avoid, and my world's cut off. It's small. I'm in a box. And we believe I am powerless over people, places, and things. That's what we'll say. If I want to be free in the outside world, I need to go make amends. Clean up my side. I don't want to walk down on the other side of the street because that person's over there. I don't want to leave a meeting because that person's. I see this stuff I've seen happen. Some guy walked in. There was a guy that walked into a meeting one time, and he said, I had to leave walking my daughter down the aisle because my brother showed up at the wedding. And we're like, okay. And he goes, I can't see that person. And I was like, wow, this is sad. He's in a tuxedo at a meeting. Sad. I mean, I don't want to be at a party looking around and wondering if, is this guy going to walk in? I don't want to be in fear in the pit of my stomach when I see a certain face. And if I do, I can make amends. But I don't want to, oh, sorry, Mom, I can't come to family gathering because my brother is going to be there. I did that for years. Or skip our kids' birthdays because the ex might be there. See, that's why the children are the innocent victims. I don't want to have to look over my shoulder ever again. I mean, today I can honestly tell you from the bottom of my heart that today I can walk the planet a free person, not fearing who I might run into or not worrying about the wreckage of my past. Where I wake up every day and think about it. I can drive down any street. I don't have to, skip the street because these people live over here, or I owe this guy money. I can go to any wedding or social event. I can walk down any aisle at Costco, not have to worry about someone who's going to walk around the corner. I remember being in the stores and someone, oh my God, I got out of here. I can go to all the stores I stole from. No buzzer goes off. There's no sticker on the wall. Look out for this guy. Yeah. There's no recovery though if I'm dodging people places and people in places I stole from or resent or physically harmed. You know, but amends large portion of my life, which are completely cut off, are open. And when all this crap is gone, that's where freedom kicks in. And go anywhere I want to go and receive peace. By all my side of the street. So there's like 4 freedoms with amends: freedom from guilt, to stands between me and God, freedom, the geographical freedom of places, and freedom of people, you know, and freedom with God, freedom from guilt, freedom, geographical freedom, freedom with people, and freedom with God. And when we receive freedom within in the physical world, we can be maximum service to God and people about us. Meaning I can continue to connect and grow, start living and on God's terms, not mine. So it's a pretty cool thing, this freedom stuff, and it's a big thing. It's one I did a book study one time, and he goes, this guy was new, and he told me afterwards, and he goes, when you eat food too fast and you get like indigestion, he goes, that's what I feel like after listening to you talk. I was like, okay, cool, you know, but it's like, I mean, we're gonna get more in this next week. I mean, we're gonna talk about proper ways to make amends from my own personal experiences, what not to say, and more importantly, what to say. Yeah, I'm gonna stop the recording.